Defense. Last night's first round of the NFL draft, Jesse Cofield had a distinctly different feel at the top. You know why?
Why?
Because for the first time since 1991, the first 5 picks were all on the defensive side of the football. Trayvon Walker going number 1 overall. A lot of Georgia flavor too, huh?
Yeah.
No. Terrible pick.
1 of 5 Georgia defensive players selected in the first round. A record from one defense in the common draft era. Pretty crazy.
Best defense in the country on the best team in the country. They were rewarded for it. Morning, fam. It's good to see you. I'm Emmer Solansis. She's Jesse Cofield. Welcome to The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. It was a wild night. There were trades galore. I believe like 9 of them total. Hollywood Brown has a new team. A.J. Brown has a new team. I mean, the night was full of endless surprises.
Yeah, and it was kind of stealing the spotlight from the draft.
Yeah, it really was. Those crazy trades were kind of overshadowing what was going on in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
We also learned another big takeaway is that the Packers hate Aaron Rodgers more than Aaron Rodgers hates his family.
Yeah,
that is clear.
That was
obvious now.
That was actually crazy.
Hey, speaking of family, DraftKings contributors, Reid T. Fowler, bestie, and GM Pearce Dietrich. What's up, guys? Good morning.
Guys, so we see the top 5 here, all defensive players. Like Reid, any surprises to you in this group?
Yeah, I mean, outside of getting my lock last night's bet incorrect at the Giants taking an offensive lineman first, and look, it made sense, right? Once Stingley went third, which was the rumors that, and it came true, right, that he was going to go third to Houston. Now you're talking about like the Giants at 7, making sure, right, that they have a pick of the litter, how things, were going to transpire, especially then when Sauce went 4. And so getting Kayvon Thibodeaux at top 5, and I've been saying it, for anyone who's willing to listen, that Thibodeaux is a guy that belongs in the top 5. And for whatever reason, because of outside issues, because of character issues, whatever they may be, he was slipping. And the Giants, good on them, right? Good on them to get their guy and to make sure no one jumped into that number 6 spot in Carolina, who was a prime trade down candidate to jump up and get Kayvon Thibodeaux before the Giants could at number 7. So that was fantastic. Look, I like Stingley. I really do. I think he's going to be fantastic. But getting him at 3, if you're Houston, I understand you need some superstars on that team, but you also need to protect your quarterback. This has been an issue for the Texans forever, since David Carr. They need to protect their quarterback, and potentially not getting one of those guys early might bite them, but those are the only things that I saw.
Yeah, Pearce, did you see anything that shocked you here?
Yeah, the shocking thing was that they were all perfectly reasonable and sane. Teams took, their basic needs. No one reached. If you needed an offensive lineman, you drafted a lineman. The Chargers, the Texans, the Panthers, the Cowboys, the Seahawks. They didn't go with, the fancy sports car. They went to the dealership, stuck to what they needed, got the sedan, and played it safe. And then the other teams said, all right, well, I don't want to overspend on quarterback or maybe on some of the wide receivers. And instead they said, hey, just give me the best defensive player available. Just very rational. I don't know if they're going to be reasonable and rational tonight, though.
Okay, well, we could see, and we're likely to see more quarterbacks taken than we did last night. Because last night, GM Pearce, you said under 2.5 quarterbacks. Real general managers around the world actually listened to you. Only one signal caller was selected in the first round. So it's Kenny Pickett sticking around in Pittsburgh. Are you surprised at all that Willis didn't go, though, in the first round, Pearce?
I am a little surprised, but when you look at the back end of the first round, there really wasn't anyone else other than Pittsburgh. We knew Pittsburgh would take a quarterback, but no one else was going to take anybody. So it's not really shocking to see him fall and plummet down. I thought maybe he had a chance in the top, but it really wasn't looking like that. Teams just played it safe. But tonight, this is where it's going to get crazy, and everyone's going to, run to get their quarterback. Look, I like the offensive lineman. It's nice being right. Let me just mention that. It's nice being right for once in a while. Let me also bring up Deebo Samuel is still a 49er, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys are keeping track of that one.
Yeah.
I think the surprises are going to come tonight when everybody's fighting for the quarterbacks.
Okay, well, Reid, Willis, dual threat talent here, and was looked at as the quarterback with the highest ceiling among this year's crop.
Yeah, and it's nice for the NASCAR guy to take a victory lap every once in a while. We need to, Pearce. We need to, because in this game you're more wrong than you're right. So good on you. But yeah, Like I'm sort of surprised. I'm taking a sentiment of what Pearce said in that first question. Is I'm surprised teams didn't reach on someone like Willis or any other players not named Cole Strange, and not surprised that teams didn't see the need to get him in the first, right? With that fifth-year option caveat that we always talk about for these quarterbacks, he wasn't that type of player. And teams now are seeing that, like these receivers, these cornerbacks, and quarterbacks, teams aren't jumping up to get them. They have people that sort of have their finger on the rumor mill pulse, and Malik Willis wasn't that guy that was going to go in that round. And so seeing him in some of these mocks going 6th overall, or teams trading up in the top 10 to get Malik Willis, I thought was fairly crazy. But to Pearce's point, I am surprised, because history says that quarterbacks usually we haven't had less than 3 quarterbacks in the first round for a very, very long time. Same with running back, but mostly quarterbacks. So a little surprised there, but not surprised because Malik Willis wasn't that guy that you needed to get in the first round. It was only just going to be nice to have him.
All right, Reid, which player selected was the best value at their spot? Probably not going with Cole Strange with the number 29 pick by the Patriots, right?
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Grade F for the Patriots and Cole Strange.
For real.
Absolutely love to see it. Kyle Hamilton at number 14 to the Ravens. Hamilton is one of my favorite players in this year's draft. Him falling to 14 because of a quote-unquote slow 40 time is crazy. This guy's a playmaker. 40 times don't necessarily translate on the field speed. You watch him at Notre Dame. He was fantastic in covering. His closeout speed to the ball is great. He's 6'4", 220. In Baltimore, that's their prototypical type of player. And now you got one in that secondary to go along with a quote-unquote healthy Marcus Peters and a Marlon Humphreys. And so him, and then George Karlaftis, too, at 30th, Kansas City. I mean, I think that's an unbelievable steal. This guy just went under the radar. All of the other guys, the DNs, the edges, were getting talked up. Jermaine Johnson, how come he's sliding? He was rising pre-draft. George Karlaftis quietly sitting there at 30th. Kansas City really got their guy.
Yeah, Pearce, who do you think got someone at good value here?
Evan Neal with the 7th pick to the Giants is a steal in my book. I am team owner guy. I'm also always draft an offensive lineman guy. It's pretty boring. It's pretty vanilla, but I think that this guy really could help out. When we first started doing all this projection and talk, Evan Neal was projected to be the number 1 pick. So for the Giants to get him at 7, they've got an offensive lineman in the first round of 2 of the last 3 rounds, or 2 of the last 3 seasons. We may see Jones and Barkley, and maybe Tony now can come into it if he stays on that team. If they form a decent line, that's definitely a winnable division, new coaching staff, a new attitude. I think he could be, obviously out of Alabama, he's ready to go. The Giants could be the real deal this season.
Hey, Pearce, Malik Willis' draft position gets now off the board. It was 35.5. Seattle was the favorite at plus 300 to scoop him up. Where do you see Willis going tonight?
I think he'll go under that 30.5. And the odds are really strange because Seattle was the favorite to nab him, and they're picking 40th, but the over-under on him was 35th. So it implies that, is Seattle going to trade up? Does that mean that the book expects Seattle to trade up and grab him, or will Seattle stay where they are and take Corral or possibly Ritter at 40? It's kind of weird. The lines are strange, but if you ask me, I think Tampa is going to trade down, or possibly we could see Tennessee grab Willis. I think Willis probably goes 35 to Tennessee is where I think it happens.
Okay, Reid, what do you think? Where's his next home?
That's definitely a possibility. But what you think about too with Willis is I still think Seattle's that team that gets him, and they're at 40-41 around there. They could trade up, right? And I think the Vikings are the one team that could trade up. And so betting this over 35.5 is a little scary because there are some teams that do, like especially Seattle, that would want him, and that's why I like just sticking with that. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but. With what Tannehill did last year in the playoffs, I could definitely see that happening. And, what about the Giants as well? Like they had a plus round 1 draft. Why not maybe trade up a couple spots, maybe with the Vikings because the Vikings drafted 32nd yesterday or last night. Picking 34th doesn't really, right? You're not really getting a lot of value out of that. Maybe if you trade back, you get some late, 3rd, 4th, 5th round value. If you're the Vikings from the Giants could scoop up Malik Willis because they haven't picked up Daniel Jones's 5th-year option. That could also be a possibility as well. So there's a lot of scenarios I would not want to bet this Malik Willis 35.5 because there are many different scenarios of where he's going to go.
Yeah, Seahawks have 40 and 41, actually. So who's getting a steal in the second round tonight, though, Reid?
Yeah, I think it's Nakobe Dean. Whoever snags Nakobe Dean, the linebacker out of Georgia, he was top 20 on my board in terms of prospects coming into this. And he was invited. He was invited to the green room yesterday, and he wasn't drafted, right? So that was something that all of us thought, even the NFL thought he could have gone in the first round. Whichever team gets in, if it's Commanders, if it's the Giants at that spot at 36, wherever it is, it's going to be a steal. This guy has great lateral speed, great downhill speed, and he comes from that amazing Georgia defense.
Pearce, what do you think?
Malik Willis is number one. He was middle of the first round talent. The only reason he fell to the second round is just because there really wasn't any suitors. It doesn't change his talent level. So if you get a middle of the first round quarterback in the second round, that's a steal. You've got a couple of receivers in Pickens and Sky Moore. Also, were projected to be first rounders. You get them in the second round, you're fine. I think also Bernard Raymond probably will go. If I'm Tampa, I select him with the first pick because we know they need offensive lineman help, losing a lineman to free agency and then retirement. He also was a middle of the first round talent, and it shores up a big hole for them. So those are the guys I think are going to be value. I think they're all going to go early in the second round, though.
All right, before we wrap up this segment here, Pearce, which other bets are you keeping an eye on tonight?
I'm really interested in going back to that Malik Willis bet, and I would say taking the over 35.5. Although I think everyone's going to trade up. I don't know. I think maybe rationality and people are just going to continue to be sane and passive. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Willis fall 240th to Seattle and see Pete Carroll just, basically win the stare down here.
What about you, Reid?
Yeah, it's the same. I'm going Malik Willis. I'm still at plus 300 for him to go to Seattle. I think that's where they go. I think that covers you if they trade up to get him with a team like Minnesota, or he falls and he slips down to their 40th spot or 41st. It doesn't matter which pick they use on him. I think he goes to Seattle.